At the same time, we both secured good jobs and began saving for our dream house right away. We haven't had children yet. I've been wanting them, but Donna isn't interested in being a mom. This has been the main issue in our marriage. We met in college and have always been open to trying new things, though nothing too wild. Our intimate life was active and regular until about 4 months ago. Our first encounter was during a bird-watching hike organized by our university's nature club. I had just spotted a rare warbler when Donna approached, binoculars in hand, equally excited about the sighting. Her enthusiasm was infectious, and we quickly bonded over our shared love for bird-watching. It was refreshing to find someone who enjoyed the same hobbies and didn't mind spending hours outdoors, searching for new bird species. Our relationship grew naturally from there. We would go on numerous bird-watching hikes, spending weekends in forests and nature reserves, always on the lookout for rare birds. Our first intimate moment happened during one of these hikes. We had ventured deep into the woods, far from the usual trails, and found a secluded spot by a small, serene lake. It felt like we were the only two people in the world, surrounded by the sounds of nature and the gentle rustling of leaves. Donna's preference for simplicity was one of the many things I loved about her. She wasn't into fancy lingerie or extravagant outfits. She preferred simple, comfortable clothes. Her beauty lay in her natural appearance, shoulder-length brown hair, a Mediterranean complexion, and a perfectly round figure that I found irresistibly attractive. Donna was always hesitant about shaving extra body hair, fearing it might grow back thicker, but I found it charming and loved her deeply for who she was. We quickly fell into a comfortable routine, balancing our studies, work, and hobbies. Donna's meticulous nature complemented my laid-back attitude, and together, we made a great team. After college, we both landed well-paying jobs, Donna in marketing and I in software development. With our combined incomes, we started saving for a house, eager to build a future together. Despite our busy schedules, we made time for each other. Our evenings were spent cooking together, watching our favorite shows, or planning our next birdwatching adventure. Donna kept a detailed log of the birds she spotted, meticulously recording each sighting in a notebook. Even though most of the birds were common species, she found joy in documenting them, and I loved seeing her so passionate about something. However, as time went on, our different views on having children became more pronounced. I had always envisioned a future with kids, imagining weekends spent playing in the yard and teaching them about nature. Donna, on the other hand, was adamant about not wanting to be a mom. She valued her independence and feared that having children would mean losing her identity and freedom. This difference in our desires became a source of tension, though we tried to navigate it as best we could. About 4 months ago, our intimate life started to wane. We were both working long hours, often coming home exhausted and just falling asleep on the couch. Donna usually arrived home before me, quickly changing and heading out for her evening birdwatching sessions. She was almost obsessive about it, spending hours in the field and coming back with new entries for her log. I, on the other hand, was overwhelmed with work and often too tired to engage in any meaningful interaction. I realized I wasn't being a good husband or companion. Days would pass without us being close, and I expected her to initiate, but she didn't. She seemed relieved when I didn't make an effort, which worried me. Growing up, I had a bad temper and would lose control easily, even getting into fights. By the time I finished high school, I had learned to control it. Donna didn't know about my temper, and she never did anything to push me over the edge. That's one reason I was drawn to her. She brought a sense of calm into my life. My parents never brought up my temper issues with her, and I was grateful for that. However, the growing distance between us was becoming more apparent. I decided to adjust my workload and schedule to have more time with Donna. I told my boss I had taken on too much, and he understood. Now, I had to fix things with my wife. I didn't suspect her of cheating, but I knew she wasn't happy with the lack of attention I was giving her. One evening, I proposed the idea of taking a vacation. Donna, do you think we need a break? Maybe a short trip somewhere quiet and romantic? I suggested, hoping it would help us reconnect. No, I don't think so. Maybe a short one if you can manage, she replied. I was thinking a week or two somewhere quiet and romantic. We haven't been spending much time together lately. Brian, I don't think either of us wants to be away from work that long. Let's stick to saving for the house, Donna said, her voice firm but kind. I know the house is important, but we need more time together. After work, I'm too tired to do much, and weekends are full of chores. I'm happy with a short trip nearby, but a full vacation is too much for me right now, she explained. Maybe I'm just stressing too much. I want to make sure I'm doing everything to keep you happy, I said, feeling the weight of our disconnect. I'm happy, Brian. If things start going south, I'll tell you so we can fix them. We've got enough real problems without making up imaginary ones, she assured me. I hope you're right. I don't want you looking elsewhere, I said, trying to lighten the mood with a smile. She gave me a small smirk. Well, that was my big effort to improve our marriage. I did a lousy job, I guess. I'm not any better at fixing things than I am at realizing when things are wrong. I didn't mention my new work hours that night. I made a weak attempt at intimacy, but she had a headache and went to bed early. I checked on her birdwatching log and noticed she was going out often, but sightings of her were rare. I have a small Honda 250 Rebel motorcycle that I adore. It's quick, quiet, and easy to handle, not loud and bulky like those big Harleys. It always starts up and doesn't give me any trouble. As the days went by, I realized our routine was changing. Donna would come home, change quickly, and head out for bird watching until sunset. I'd arrive home late, exhausted, and often fell asleep on the couch while watching TV. The distance between us grew, and I knew I needed to do something to bring us back together. Little did I know, this was just the beginning of a series of events that would change our lives forever. The first signs of strain in our marriage began to show when our schedules became more demanding. With our dream house fund steadily growing, I took on additional projects at work, hoping to speed up the process. This meant late nights and long weekends, leaving little time for Donna. She continued her bird-watching outings, seemingly more engrossed in them than ever before. Our conversations grew shorter, often limited to logistical details and superficial topics. Donna's obsession with bird watching became more intense. She would spend hours in the field, meticulously documenting even the most common birds. Her logbook, once a casual hobby, turned into an almost obsessive ritual. I admired her dedication but couldn't shake the feeling that something was amiss. She seemed distant, her attention more focused on the birds than on our relationship. Our intimate life had nearly vanished. I noticed she avoided physical contact, often turning away when I tried to hold her or kiss her. It was as if a wall had been erected between us, and no matter how hard I tried, I couldn't break through. I started to worry that the root of our issues was deeper than just our busy schedules. One evening, after another long day at work, I came home to find Donna already asleep. I sat on the edge of the bed, watching her for a moment, and felt a pang of loneliness. We were living together, but it felt like we were worlds apart. I decided it was time to have a serious conversation about our future. Donna, we need to talk, I said the next morning over breakfast. She looked up from her plate, her expression neutral. About what? About us. About our relationship. I feel like we're drifting apart, and I don't know how to fix it. She sighed, putting down her fork. Brian, I'm just really busy with work and my birdwatching. It's not that I don't care about you, but I need my space too. I understand that, but we can't keep going on like this. We need to find a balance. Maybe we should consider seeing a therapist. Donna shook her head. I don't think we need a therapist. We're just going through a rough patch. It'll pass. I wanted to believe her, but deep down, I knew it wasn't that simple. The distance between us was growing, and I feared that if we didn't address it soon, it would become insurmountable. A few weeks later, I adjusted my workload to spend more time at home. I hoped that being around more would help us reconnect. I started coming home earlier, cooking dinner, and suggesting we spend evenings together. At first, Donna seemed receptive, but the old spark was missing. She was polite but distant, and our conversations felt forced. Donna, do you think we need to take a break? I asked one evening as we sat on the couch. A break? What do you mean? She replied, her brow furrowing. Maybe a short vacation, just the two of us. We haven't had much time together lately, and I think it would do us good. She hesitated, then shook her head. I don't think that's a good idea. We have too much going on right now. Maybe a weekend trip nearby, but nothing more. I felt a pang of disappointment but nodded. Okay, a weekend trip it is. Let's plan something for next month. As the days passed, I noticed Donna's behavior becoming more erratic. She was secretive, often taking phone calls in the other room and spending hours on her computer. When I asked about it, she brushed me off, saying it was work-related. I wanted to believe her, but a nagging feeling in the back of my mind told me otherwise. One afternoon, while Donna was out bird-watching, I decided to check her computer. It felt wrong, but I was desperate for answers. I found her email open and quickly scanned through the messages. Most were harmless, but one thread caught my eye. It was with a colleague named Clayton, and the tone was more personal than professional. There were hints of shared secrets and inside jokes that made me uneasy. My heart sank as I read through the emails. They weren't explicit, but there was enough to suggest that Donna and Clayton were closer than I had realized. I felt a surge of anger and betrayal. How could she do this to me? To us? When Donna came home that evening, I confronted her. Donna, we need to talk. I saw your emails with Clayton. Her face paled, and she took a step back. Brian, I can explain. Explain what? That you've been hiding things from me? That you're closer to him than you've let on? It's not what you think. Clayton and I are just friends. We've been working on a project together, and sometimes we joke around. There's nothing more to it. I wanted to believe her, but the doubts lingered. Why didn't you tell me about him? I didn't think it was important. He's just a colleague. The conversation left me feeling hollow. Donna's explanations didn't fully convince me, but I didn't have concrete proof of anything more. The strain in our marriage continued to grow, and I found myself withdrawing, unsure of how to bridge the gap between us. I threw myself into work, hoping the distraction would help. But every evening, I came home to the same sense of unease. Donna and I barely spoke, and when we did, it was tense and uncomfortable. I missed the days when we could talk about anything and everything, when our connection felt effortless. One night, unable to sleep, I went for a walk around the neighborhood. The cool air helped clear my mind, but it also made me realize how isolated I had become. I didn't have anyone to talk to about my problems, no close friends or family nearby. Donna had been my confidant, my partner, and now I felt like I was losing her. As I walked, I thought about our early years together. The joy we found in simple things, the adventures we shared, and the dreams we built. I wanted to find a way back to that, to the love and companionship that had defined our relationship. But the path forward seemed unclear, and I didn't know if Donna felt the same way. When I returned home, Donna was waiting for me. "Where did you go?" she asked, her voice softer than usual. "Just needed some fresh air," I replied. She nodded, and for a moment, we stood there in silence. Then she reached out and took my hand. "Brian, I know things have been difficult, but I want to try to make it work. Can we do that?" I looked into her eyes and saw a glimmer of hope. "Yes, Donna, we can try." Our decision to try and make things work felt promising at first. Donna and I made an effort to spend more time together, taking evening walks and cooking meals. For a while, it seemed like we were rediscovering the bond we once had. But despite our efforts, something still felt off. The distance between us, while less pronounced, remained. One Saturday, Donna suggested we go bird watching at Rainbow Mountain, a place we hadn't visited in years. I agreed, hoping it would reignite our shared passion. We packed our gear and set out early, the morning sun casting a golden hue over the landscape. As we hiked the familiar trails, I felt a sense of nostalgia. This was where our relationship had begun, where we had shared so many happy moments. But as we walked, I couldn't shake the feeling that Donna was distracted. She kept checking her phone, her eyes darting around as if expecting someone. "Are you okay?" I asked, trying to sound casual. "Yeah, just thinking about work," she replied, slipping her phone back into her pocket. We reached a scenic overlook, a spot with a breathtaking view of the valley below. Donna set up her binoculars and began scanning the horizon, while I took a seat on a nearby rock. I watched her for a moment, her silhouette framed against the sky, and felt a pang of longing. I missed the days when we could just be present with each other, without the shadows of doubt and suspicion. After a while, Donna seemed to relax, and we started talking about our favorite bird sightings. The conversation flowed more naturally, and I felt a flicker of hope. Maybe we could find our way back to each other after all. Later that afternoon, as we were packing up to leave, Donna received a phone call. She stepped away to answer it, her voice low and urgent. I pretended not to notice, but curiosity gnawed at me. When she returned, her expression was tense. "Everything okay?" I asked. "Yeah, just a work thing," she replied, avoiding my gaze. The drive home was quiet, each of us lost in our thoughts. That night, unable to sleep, I decided to check Donna's phone. She had fallen asleep with it on the nightstand, and I quietly picked it up. My heart raced as I scrolled through her messages. Most were mundane, but then I found a conversation with Clayton that made my blood run cold. The messages were innocent enough on the surface, but the subtext was clear. They had been meeting up, not just for work, but for something more. My hands shook as I read through the thread, the sense of betrayal cutting deep. How could she lie to me like this? I confronted Donna the next morning. "Donna, I know about you and Clayton." She froze, her face draining of color. "What are you talking about?" "I saw the messages on your phone. You've been seeing him behind my back." Her eyes filled with tears. "Brian, it's not what you think. We're just friends." "Friends? Friends don't lie and sneak around. How long has this been going on?" She looked away, unable to meet my gaze. "A few months," she admitted quietly. The room seemed to spin, and I had to steady myself against the counter. "Why, Donna? Why did you do this?" "I didn't plan for it to happen. We just connected. I felt like you didn't care about me anymore, like you were more focused on work and saving for the house." Her words stung, but I couldn't deny there was some truth to them. I had been neglecting her, caught up in my own world, but that didn't excuse her actions. "So this is my fault?" I asked, incredulous. "No, it's not your fault. I needed someone to talk to, and Clayton was there." I took a deep breath, trying to process everything. "We need to figure out what we're going to do. I can't live like this." She nodded, tears streaming down her face. "I understand. I just want you to know that I'm sorry. I never wanted to hurt you." The following weeks were a blur of tension and uncertainty. We decided to give each other some space, with Donna moving into the guest room. I threw myself into work, trying to find solace in the routine. But the betrayal weighed heavily on me, and I found it hard to concentrate. One evening, I received a call from an unknown number. Hesitant, I answered. "Hello? Brian, it's Emily, Clayton's wife. We need to talk." My heart sank. "Emily, I'm so sorry. I had no idea. Neither did I, she replied, her voice tight with emotion. Can we meet? I think we need to compare notes. We arranged to meet at a nearby coffee shop. When I arrived, Emily was already seated, a grim expression on her face. We exchanged pleasantries, and then she got straight to the point. I found some things on Clayton's computer. Emails, messages. It looks like they've been seeing each other for a while. I nodded, feeling a lump in my throat. I found messages on Donna's phone. She admitted to it. Emily sighed, rubbing her temples. I don't know what to do. We have 2 kids, and this is tearing our family apart. I'm so sorry, Emily. I wish I had seen the signs earlier. It's not your fault, she said softly. We're both victims in this. We talked for a long time, sharing our experiences and trying to make sense of the situation. It was strangely comforting to know I wasn't alone in my feelings of betrayal and anger. As the days went by, I found myself increasingly drawn to Emily. We started meeting regularly, initially to discuss our spouse's infidelity, but gradually our conversations shifted to more personal topics. She was kind, intelligent, and understanding. Everything I felt I had lost with Donna. One evening, after another difficult day, I received a text from Emily. Can you come over? I need to talk. I drove to her house, feeling a mix of apprehension and anticipation. When I arrived, she greeted me with a warm smile and invited me in. We sat on the couch, and she poured us both a glass of wine. Brian, I know this is complicated, but I've been thinking a lot about us, she began, her eyes searching mine. I took a deep breath. Me too. I feel a connection with you, Emily. Something I haven't felt in a long time. She nodded, tears welling up in her eyes. I don't want to rush into anything, but I can't deny that I have feelings for you. I reached out and took her hand. Let's take it one step at a time. We've both been through a lot, and we need to heal. That night, as I drove home, I felt a glimmer of hope. Despite the pain and betrayal, there was a possibility of something new, something real. And for the first time in months, I felt like I could breathe again. The revelation of Donna's affair had shattered the fragile peace we'd tried to rebuild. Living under the same roof became unbearable, and tension permeated every interaction. I struggled to concentrate at work, my mind constantly replaying the conversations and lies that had unraveled our marriage. The turning point came one evening when Donna confronted me. Brian, we need to talk, she said, her voice steady but her eyes betraying her anxiety. About what? I replied, not bothering to hide my frustration. About us. About what happens next. I took a deep breath, trying to keep my temper in check. All right, let's talk. Donna sat down on the couch, motioning for me to join her. I remained standing, feeling the distance between us both physically and emotionally. I know I've made mistakes, she began, and I'm sorry for the pain I've caused you, but we need to figure out where we go from here. Donna, your affair with Clayton didn't just hurt me. It destroyed the trust we had. I don't see how we can come back from that. She looked down, tears welling up in her eyes. I know, and I don't expect you to forgive me overnight, but can we at least try to find a way to coexist? For now. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. Donna, I don't think that's possible. This house, our life, it's all built on a foundation that's been cracked. Living like this isn't healthy for either of us. Her expression hardened. So, what do you suggest? Divorce? Yes, I said firmly. I think it's the only way forward. We need to move on with our lives separately. Donna stared at me for a long moment, then nodded slowly. All right, Brian, if that's what you want. The decision made, we began the painful process of untangling our lives. Donna moved out first, staying with a friend while she looked for a place of her own. The house, once filled with warmth and laughter, now felt cold and empty. I packed up her things, trying to keep my emotions in check as I boxed up the remnants of our shared life. One afternoon, as I was sorting through some old photos, I found a picture of us on our first birdwatching trip. We looked so happy, so full of hope and promise. I felt a pang of sadness and anger. How had we ended up here? The divorce proceedings were straightforward but emotionally draining. We had no children and our assets were simple to divide. Still, each meeting with the lawyers felt like a reopening of wounds that hadn't yet begun to heal. Donna was cooperative, but there was an undercurrent of tension in every interaction. The finality of it all was both a relief and a heartbreak. During this time, I continued to see Emily. Our bond grew stronger as we navigated our respective struggles. She was a constant source of support, and her boys, Josh and Terry, brought a sense of joy and normalcy to my life that I hadn't realized I was missing. We spent weekends together, sometimes just talking, other times going on outings with the kids. It felt like a new beginning, though the shadow of my failed marriage loomed large. One evening, after a particularly tough day, I went over to Emily's house. The boys were with their grandparents, and we had the place to ourselves. We sat on the porch, watching the sun set, the air thick with unspoken words. Emily, I don't know what I would have done without you these past few months, I said, breaking the silence. She smiled softly. Brian, you've been there for me too. We're helping each other through this. I nodded, feeling a rush of gratitude and affection. I know, and I want you to know how much you mean to me. Whatever this is between us, it feels real. It does, she agreed, her eyes meeting mine. But we need to take it slow. We both have a lot to process. I understand, I said, taking her hand. But I want you to know that I'm committed to seeing where this can go. We sat in comfortable silence, the weight of our shared experiences creating a bond that felt unbreakable. As my relationship with Emily deepened, the consequences of my marriage's breakdown continued to ripple through my life. I received a call from Detective Felix Green, asking me to come down to the station for a follow-up on Clayton's death. Brian, thanks for coming in, Felix said as I sat down in his office. We've got some new information that I think you should be aware of. My heart raced. What is it? We've been investigating Clayton's death further, and it appears there may have been foul play involved. We're looking into all possible leads, but we thought you should know. The news hit me like a punch to the gut. Foul play? You mean he was murdered? We're not ruling anything out, Felix replied. We've also been keeping an eye on your wife. Her activities have raised some suspicions. I felt a surge of anger and fear.
Donna,
what are you saying? Just that you should be careful. There are a lot of pieces to this puzzle, and we're still putting it together. The conversation left me reeling. Donna's affair was one thing, but the possibility that she might be involved in something darker was terrifying. I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being drawn into a web of deceit and danger. When I returned home, I found a message from Emily. Call me when you get this. I dialed her number, my hands trembling. Emily, what's going on? Brian, I think you need to come over. There's something we need to talk about. I drove to her house, my mind racing with worst-case scenarios. When I arrived, Emily was waiting for me on the porch, her expression grave. What's wrong? I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. It's about Donna, she said, her eyes filled with concern. I think she might be in more trouble than we realize. Emily's revelation about Donna cast a dark shadow over the fragile peace I had begun to build. My thoughts were a jumble of fear, anger, and confusion as I sat on Emily's porch, trying to process her words. Emily, what do you mean by trouble? I asked, struggling to keep my voice steady. Brian, I found out some things about Clayton's death. It wasn't an accident. There's evidence suggesting that Donna might have been involved, she said, her eyes serious. My mind reeled. Involved how? Are you saying she had something to do with his death? Emily nodded. It's possible. I don't have all the details, but it looks like she might have been part of something bigger. I felt a wave of nausea. The idea that Donna could be involved in something so sinister was almost too much to bear. What do we do now? We need to talk to Felix, Emily said firmly. He might have more information. The next morning, we met with Detective Felix Green at his office. Felix greeted us with a grim expression, and it was clear that he had more to share. Brian, Emily, thank you for coming in. We've been piecing together more about Clayton's death and Donna's involvement. It's not looking good, Felix began. I clenched my fists, trying to control the anger bubbling inside me. Just tell us what you found. Clayton's death wasn't an accident. We have evidence that suggests foul play. Donna's been linked to some questionable activities, and it's possible she had a motive to get rid of Clayton, Felix explained. My heart sank. What kind of motive? We believe Clayton found out something about Donna that put her in a difficult position. We're still investigating, but there's a trail of financial discrepancies and suspicious transactions, Felix said. Emily placed a comforting hand on my arm. Brian, we'll get through this. You need to stay strong. I nodded, feeling a mixture of gratitude and despair. What happens now? We're keeping a close watch on Donna. We need to gather more evidence before we can take any legal action. In the meantime, you need to be cautious, Felix advised. Leaving the station, I felt a heavy weight on my shoulders. The woman I had once loved and trusted was now a stranger, entangled in a web of deceit and danger. Emily and I decided to focus on the future, despite the uncertainty that loomed over us. The next few weeks were a whirlwind of emotions and adjustments. Emily and I grew closer, finding solace in each other's company. Her boys, Josh and Terry, brought a sense of normalcy and joy to our lives, and I found myself increasingly involved in their daily routines. We attended PTA meetings, soccer games, and school events together, building a new sense of family. One evening, as we were preparing dinner, Emily turned to me with a thoughtful expression. Brian, have you thought about what you want to do next? With your career, your life? I paused, considering her question. I haven't really had the chance to think about it. Everything's been so chaotic. She smiled softly. Maybe it's time to start thinking about it. You deserve to find happiness and fulfillment. Her words resonated with me. For so long, I had been consumed by the turmoil in my personal life that I had neglected my own aspirations and dreams. It was time to take control of my future. I decided to take a leave of absence from work to clear my head and figure out my next steps. With Emily's encouragement, I began exploring new opportunities and rekindling old passions. I took up bird watching again, this time with Josh and Terry, teaching them the joys of observing nature. It felt like coming full circle, finding peace in the simplicity of the outdoors. One day, while we were out on a hike, Josh turned to me with a curious look. "Brian, do you miss Donna?" His question caught me off guard, but I appreciated his honesty. "Sometimes, Josh, but things change, and people change. What's important is that we move forward and make the best of what we have." Terry chimed in, "I'm glad you're here with us, Brian. You're like a dad to us." I felt a lump in my throat and smiled at them. "Thanks, boys. That means a lot to me." As the weeks turned into months, I found a new rhythm. Emily and I continued to support each other, our bond growing stronger each day. We began making plans for the future, talking about moving in together and blending our families more permanently. It was a slow process, but it felt right. One evening, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, Emily leaned her head on my shoulder. "Brian, I feel like we're finally moving forward. Like we have a real chance at happiness." I kissed her forehead, feeling a sense of peace I hadn't felt in a long time. "I think so too, Emily. We're building something good here." Our conversations about the future became more concrete. We discussed our goals, dreams, and how we could support each other in achieving them. Emily was considering starting her own business, and I was exploring opportunities in environmental conservation, combining my skills in software development with my passion for nature. Despite the progress we were making, the shadow of Donna's actions still loomed. Felix kept us updated on the investigation, and it was clear that things were moving towards a resolution. The day finally came when Felix called with news. "Brian, we've gathered enough evidence to proceed. Donna will be facing charges for her involvement in Clayton's death and the financial crimes we've uncovered." I felt a mix of relief and sadness. "Thank you, Felix. I appreciate everything you've done." As I hung up the phone, Emily wrapped her arms around me. "It's almost over, Brian. You can finally put this behind you." I nodded, feeling a sense of closure. Yes, it's time to move forward. For good. In the following weeks, the legal proceedings against Donna unfolded. She was charged and taken into custody, facing a lengthy legal battle. It was a painful process, but it marked the end of a tumultuous chapter in my life. With the past finally behind me, I focused on the future with renewed energy. Emily and I decided to move in together, creating a home filled with love, laughter, and new beginnings. We continued to support each other's dreams, and I found fulfillment in my new career path. As we settled into our new life, I realized how far I had come. The journey had been difficult, but it had also led me to a place of growth and healing. I had found love and family in the most unexpected circumstances, and I was determined to cherish and nurture it. One evening, as we gathered around the dinner table, Josh and Terry laughing and sharing stories about their day, I looked at Emily and smiled. "We've built something beautiful here," I said. She squeezed my hand. "Yes, we have. And it's only the beginning." Looking around at the faces of my new family, I knew that we were moving forward, together, into a future filled with hope and possibility.